Welcome, everyone. This is our first meeting back in person as a school board, so we're very excited. It is August 17th, 2021. This is a regular school board meeting. It is 6:13 p.m. and we are reconvening in open session. We've been in closed session until now. We'll start off with a roll call.
Stephanie Amott.
Here.
Rich Carnation.
Here.
Eric Heights.
Here.
Bill Adams.
Here.
Malinali Lopez. Not here. And student board member Kai Heflin.
Here.
Moving on to item 2.2, we'll now have a flag salute from Trustee Carnation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then item 2.3, do we have a report out of closed session, Superintendent Decker?
We do not. Everything is agendized later on. Oh, I gotta do this. There, I'm on. We do not. Everything is agendized later on.
Okay, great. Item 3.1, do we have any adjustments to the agenda? I have one, but I'll hear from others first. So we are going to add our board goals as item 5.3, and we will put an attachment up as soon as we can for that one, and then we will move current item 5.3 to 5.4. Any other adjustments? I don't think so, so we will move on. Is there any public comment on open session items? Is anyone here for public comment? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Then we will move on to item 3.3, which is a report from our student board member, Kai Heflin. Take it away.
Thank you. My name is Kai Heflin. I'm the student board member for the Windsor Unified School District.
Hey, Kai.
If
Wow.
it's okay.
You get the hard item. Good luck.
Yeah. Okay. I see. So I would like to introduce an idea to the school board concerning the maximization of student input for the school board. Next slide, please. So for the student surveys, the first thing I would like to cover is the rationale. And the rationale for this is to gather general and specific information regarding student concerns and our crucial topics to inform the school board. And because the school board and the faculty of WSD cannot talk to or discuss to each student, I believe that having a survey such as this one every semester, fall and spring semesters, or for at least this academic year by which my term is. And so to quickly describe the survey would to conduct either a district-wide survey, or it could also be based on schools for WHS or Windsor Middle School. And the specifics of this would be conducted on Google Forms, and it would be in English and Spanish. Because, for example, when I was walking in school today, I saw many students speaking in Spanish and English, of course. So one of the things that I would like to do in the survey is to provide English and Spanish, so then every student can read the survey and answer the survey in the language that they're most comfortable with. And it would be in short answer, multiple choice, and true and false formats. And students with disabilities will receive assistance from faculty if needed. And when a survey like this will be conducted, the specifics of the questions will be more targeted towards the topics either currently or in the future will be discussed for the district. So if there's any sort of topic that is that's particularly in mind of the students, or if there are any dissent topics that have a lot of dissent, or topics that are not necessarily controversial, but topics that you would want the youth of the community, in other words, the students of WSD, to respond to. And next slide, please. So I'd like to provide a quick update because I know that we have a lot to discuss tonight. And next regular board meeting, I will provide the school board regarding more direct student input. And next slide, please. And thank you for paying attention, and thank you for listening. And my email is also attached right there. It's studentboard@stu.wusd.org. If anybody has any questions. And that's it.
Thank you, Kai. So I'll just comment first. I really like that you laid out the methodology for the survey and took that step of kind of figuring out how to include everyone. I think that's a really important, like, notwithstanding what's asked, I think it's really important to think through how it's executed. So I appreciate you doing that and walking us through it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
So I would be very interested in exploring further. We have, for a number of years, done student surveys as part of our LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan stakeholder, which has sort of a different focus, and there's a sort of a fixed, although they evolve every year, but sort of a set of data that is collected on that. And as I understand it, this would be complementary and supplemental to that. And so I'd be very interested, President Ahmad, to have whoever Superintendent Decker needs to work with, and there she is, the survey maven, to figure out how we might do that. I think as a way to get additional feedback or identifying topics, right? I mean, we have recurring topics that come up in front of our board. As you said, some are controversial, some there may be dissent on, some people might not be aware of. And I think in getting more feedback would be good. So thank you for taking the initiative on that.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Kai. That's a good first report for you in public session here, and a little anxious, I'm sure, but you did a great job. I would want to make sure also that you mentioned Windsor High School and Windsor Middle School. Please try to include the Cali upper grade levels as well, because that's a big representation of our same age group student, but we don't want to leave anybody out that's part of our district.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kai. I will move on to item 3.4, Staff Association reports. Do we have anything from WDEA? Okay, and I don't believe CSEA is represented here tonight. I don't think so. Okay, so we'll move on to item 3.5, which is our superintendent's report.
And I actually have an agenda item that really is going to take me through what I would normally say, so I'll just hold off until my agenda
Right.
item, if that's okay.
That
5.4.
is totally fine. He will be speaking in item 5.4. So now we'll move on to Board of Trustees report. Does anyone have anything to report? I would just say welcome back to school. It's really nice to see everyone and not in a Zoom box, but I am having to get used to not being able to see everyone at the same time. So bear with us as we, come back to this new format. And I think it's great to see everyone here in person.
I would add that it was nice to be invited and included in the new teacher orientation day. I went to lunch, and Bill was there as well, and we got a chance to meet some of our new employees. I know at least 2 of which are recent Windsor High School graduates. So we have brought back some of our own homegrown talent, and we look forward to seeing them through their career. And it was nice to connect with some of those new staff members from other districts as well. So glad to be included in those things, and look forward to more interaction with our staff and our students.
I commented to Eric that new teachers seem to look younger and younger, and he reminded me that they're really always about the same age. We just get further and further away from that age. I stopped by the high school on Monday morning last week, so thank you, Brian, for hosting that. It was a scaled-back version after, I think wisely in light of the Delta variant, we did not go over to have a whole group inside, unfortunately, get together. But there was, I'd say 100 or more people there, which was very nice to see people again in person. I had to kind of kill like this to look at people, to frame their face, to make sure I knew who they were. But it reminded me that we're kicking off as normally as we can, as best we can. And so I'm excited to hear a little bit maybe how the last few days of last week and the first 2 days of this week are going. Because I drive by the schools as I go to work, and there's like kids, and they seem happy, and they're there, and parents, maybe in more cars than they'd like to have, are there, and teachers seem happy, and I think we're moving forward. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Okay, we'll move on to consent items, which Rich will handle.
Good evening. On our consent items, we have consent items number 4.1 through 4.16, and I need a motion to approve these, and if anybody would like to talk about any of them, let me know.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second. I have a question
Sure.
or two for Superintendent Decker as well.
Which item? Go ahead.
Well, sort of coupled with 4.13 and 1.4, I saw in your update that you sent us on the independent study contracts. I don't know if you're going to cover that in a subsequent item about what our engagement with other districts are and numbers of students that we're going to be expanding the distance learning opportunity to. We can do that now, if you like. So.
Use your
Jeremy,
microphone.
got to hit the mic.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet, so I can't access anything.
Yeah,
My network key is incorrect.
Actually, if maybe our technical person could check, because I was on the same issue with my iPad, so I don't know if the town's got the Wi-Fi
Different.
not working right now, if they changed the password. I don't know, but yeah,
I'm
my
not sure.
my iPad wasn't working either, so.
Thank you, sorry. So we have, with regard, Bill, to the inter-district transfers, basically, for independent study, we have a number of districts that have engaged us and are interested. The only 2 that we've actually got signed agreements for are with Healdsburg and Geyserville. I believe Healdsburg was very low. And Lisa, if you could help me, I don't know if you know the exact number or not.
So far, to my knowledge, Healdsburg is very low. We have 2 students who Ryan was talking to the special ed director from Healdsburg about earlier today. I have not seen any for Geyserville yet, and we do have a signed agreement now in place with Kenwood, and I'll be bringing that back to you next month.
And we've had other districts express interest, of course, but they're still working through the paperwork. I think people are a little bit behind where we were,
Right.
frankly, and they're trying to figure it out, so.
And could you remind us, and the ones playing at home, what the deadline is? I know it was pushed out a little further to make these MOUs and the interdistrict transfer for us to be providing those services.
So under Assembly Bill 130, we, for the 21-22 school year only, are provided an extension of 30 days beyond the first day of school, which for us is August 12th, to get master agreements in place for all students who wish to be in the independent study program.
But a student from any school district anywhere can apply to our school district, even if we don't have an agreement, correct?
On an interdistrict, just to clarify your question, Rich?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Any
that-
student
so any-
could apply on an interdistrict transfer. They would have to be granted permission out from their sending district, and then they would have to be granted admittance by us as the receiving district,
Right.
based on space and caseloads and our board policy around our maximum numbers and capacity.
Got it. Thanks. Did you have any other questions, Bill? Anybody else have any on the consent items?
Need to turn your mic.
What? No. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion by President Ahmad and a second by Trustee Adams, I believe. Bill? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 So we have 401. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. All right, we are moving now to item 5.1, which is our update on construction projects in the Windsor Unified School District. And this item is going to be presented by our construction manager, Eric Van Pelt. And I think actually not Eric.
Looks like
it's
Brian
Welcome, Brian.
Good afternoon. Eric couldn't make it, so I'm going to be filling in for him. But it's good to see you all in person. I know it's been a long time. So we had a busy and exciting summer with construction. I'll start off at Maggie Washburn with the new construction. We were able to speed up all the deliveries for the modular buildings and get those all set and installed over the summer. Also at Maggie, or along with that project, the modular contractor is working on installing the stucco at the buildings. And the site contractor is working around them, trying to backfill and get everything ready to pour concrete once they're done with the stucco. So that project's moving along pretty well. We also painted the entire Maggie Washburn campus. We took the paint scheme from the NPR building and applied that throughout the campus, and so far the feedback has been pretty good. We do have a couple minor items there that we're trying to finish up, but for the most part, that project's complete. I'll move over to Brooks. We also painted the entire campus and did siding repairs on buildings A through D. We're probably 97% done with that project with minor touch-ups here and there. And also at Brooks, we installed irrigation for the garden. And I know Sue has been working with the new gardener, Allie, and that project seems to be coming along really nice. If you have a chance, I would stop by and go check it out. Then over at the middle school, we also painted that campus. We have some minor touch-up items here and there and cleanup going on, so we'll hopefully get that closed out here within the next month. Also at the middle school, we re-roofed the H-quad metal roofs. That project went down pretty smoothly. We used the Omnia contract with Garland on that project, and that seems to be working out really great. We get really high-quality craftsmanship, and they usually always finish on schedule, so that's always good to see. And we also installed the new marquee, and we got it commissioned today. They put up the first images this morning when I drove by. It was nice to see that. Then over at the high school, we did a lot of roofing work over there. We re-roofed the admin and library building. We did the kitchen and NPR building, which had a lot of leaks. And we re-roofed the metal roofs on wing C and D. We have the final walkthrough scheduled this Thursday, and that seems to be going pretty well so far as well. And we redid the landscaping around the North Bay Med Academy, so that came out really nice as well. And we worked with the staff to pick native plants because they have a lot of native populations at their campus. So we want to incorporate that into the project. And then at the high school, we're currently working on a fire alarm upgrades project. We're upgrading the main fire alarm panel so it can talk to the panel at North Bay Med Academy. Right now they're on separate systems, and obviously in case of an emergency we want everything communicating at the site. And then finally at Cali, we are currently in design for the 2-story 14 classroom building. We submitted the temporary housing to DSA back in early June, and we finally received comments back, and we're working on addressing those and then resubmitting to DSA for final comments. We're still in the process of designing the 2-story building. We have a page-turner meeting set up with district administration and the site admin for tomorrow, and we'll get all those comments incorporated into the drawings. And we're planning on submitting that project to DSA in mid-October. And the plan right now is to break ground in February or March with the temp housing. And then once we have that all completed, we'll move in the portables we're demoing into those rooms. So a lot of exciting stuff going on there. We're also planning on using the lease back for this project. I think we have it further down in the agenda to pass the guidelines for that agreement. And then the RFP hopefully will be issued shortly after, where we'll select a contractor. So that's all I had for you guys. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Brian. Let me see. It looks like Eric and Bill.
Not directly a question, but I would like to applaud you and your crew. I live near Matty, as Bill does. He's even closer than I am, but I walk the dog over there several times a week during the summer and try to go that way on purpose to see the progress, and they've done a great job. All the buildings are in place already. And then, more than anything, I'd like to thank the voters of Windsor. The Measure F bond funds that we passed 2016 provided the money for all these projects, and they're finally coming to fruition on a lot of these items. Money that is being well spent for replacing aging and falling apart classrooms that were portables are now placed with solid buildings on a firm foundation. The painting projects, buildings look amazing. I like the new scheme at Matty, especially with the yellow in place of the kind of salmon or pink color we had. And then, you know, the high school doesn't seem like it's very old, but roofs don't last a lot more than 20 years sometimes. So to be able to do that kind of repair work without having to dip into the general fund and can use those bond issue monies, it's great progress for us, and I'm excited to see all the changes. So
The contractor at the high school did a great job. They had a lot of work to do there, and they were done almost like a week early, which was nice.
nice to have all these projects done during distance learning and during the summertime as well, and not to interrupt classwork.
Yeah, and it was nice to see at the high school. I drove by there the other day, and they were using the quad we redid last summer, which was really nice to see.
So I'll echo what Eric said. Thank you. You and Eric and the crew, and I know there's a lot of other people behind the scenes that you coordinate with. We see you and Eric Van Pelt, Brian, have just been a whirlwind the last year and a half. I mean, one upside of not having staff and students at the schools is everywhere got solar panels, everywhere got painted, everywhere got stuff done. I think probably more than we could have done to the extent that it would have been interfering with the instructional time. So thank you very much for that. I do live just on the south side of Pleasant Avenue, and I will tell you, I was like a kid with my little Tonka trucks when the 6 and 8 low boys with multiple 3 modulars, I think, per classroom, and the 5-story tall crane. I stood there with my mouth dropping watching them do it. And again, it happened seamlessly once it got going. And I think that's a tribute to you staying on top of stuff for us. And to Eric's point, it's solely because we've had the voters give us confidence with their money and their treasure. And I think we're putting it to good work. So great report. Thank you, and it's good to see you.
Anything else? Anything, Kai? Do you have anything to add, or good? Okay, Rich?
Just the same, Brian. It's you guys have, I'm in the construction world, and to watch what you guys have managed all these projects and all the things, and what people don't realize is the change orders and the things that you run into out there that you have to manage, and all the little, wait a minute, inconsistency, and there's a pipe here that wasn't supposed to be here, and all the different things that you have to deal with. I appreciate it, because I have to deal with it every day, and so I know what you do, and that you guys have done it so well. We're, as a as a board and a community, we're very thankful that we've got good folks doing great things for us and our kids. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll echo what the rest of the board said and just say that we appreciate you and everything you do. And especially this past year, we've gotten a lot done and we've started a number of projects and we're just excited to keep moving forward. I will ask if there is any public comment on this item. Seeing none, I think we will move on to item 5.2, which I think you're maybe staying. No? That's you?
I'll let Jeremy handle it.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm talking about 6.1. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So I think we're for 6.1, he will be back possibly?
He'll come back for
Okay,
6.1.
all right. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Okay, Jeremy, you are on for item 5.2, which is the 45-day revision budget
Do
information.
I normally, my first meeting in here, do I normally present from this seat or do I go up there? Podium? Okay, just want to make sure.
I don't know. You can stay there if you want. It's up to you.
I'll do, for this one, I'll stay here because this is
You're the
short.
superintendent.
For
You
the-
get to do
Fair
whatever you
enough.
want.
For the presentation, I'll go up there. How about that?
I mean, we can really make the rules over again because
all
we're
right,
like
sounds
starting
good.
over, so.
So 45-day revise is normally given by the CBO. We don't currently have a full-time CBO, so I'm giving it to you. It's required after the governor signs the budget. There's 45 days to basically revise our own budget that we created in June. And you're supposed to reflect any of the changes that came about based on the based on the governor's budget. And so there were a number of big changes in the budget, but only a few that really are going to affect our multi-year. And those will really come to you at first interim. But what we have that has changed is there was a change in the unemployment rate to 0.05%, and that estimated impact to our budget is $210,000 in the positive. So none of what I'm going to tell you is a bad thing for us. The A to G completion and improvement grant increased by our budget by $291,000. And then the California Pre-K planning grant is $106,000. And then the ELO grant, expanded learning opportunity grant, was $389,000, and that was a lot for COVID related funds. So really, those are all positive. They're not ongoing funding. They're one-time funding, which is always frustrating for a district. But you'll get a more robust explanation for what happened based on the governor's signed budget at first interim. That's when we'll really dive in deep. And just for the record, that was my first time ever doing a 45-day revision because it's always the CBO. So,
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for doing that. Do we have any questions? Looks like Bill.
So I was trying to keep track on my yellow pad, and
Sir.
it sounds like that we're up 900 grand or so with
Roughly.
one-time money, which is a whole heck of a lot better than not 900 or
Correct.
negative 900. So that's good news, and thanks. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Any public comment? Nope. Okay. Then we will move on to item 5.3, which we added in earlier, and that is, I believe, reviewing and approving our board goals.
no, because we had it in closed session, I think it probably makes the most sense to simply discuss and then
Oh,
maybe
it's
approve
in
at the next
discussion,
meeting.
sorry. That's
Yeah.
my bad, I should have known that
That's
from
all
it being
right.
in item 5. So we are just reviewing our board goals, which we've updated slightly,
Yep.
and I think we'll post them up, maybe the final version next time, or we can even do do we have any discussion on this? Anything we want to tell the public about our goals?
Do you want me to explain the changes that were made?
Yeah, and maybe also in the context between you and Stephanie about, we had the retreat, and part of that retreat was closed session, talking about your goals and performance, and
Right.
some of that is where those robust discussions, we augmented what I think, this has largely been out on the street for a number of months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful maybe in
Yeah, I
context.
think even talk about the retreat a little bit and what we talked about, and yeah,
Sure.
exactly what he just said.
So we did a full-day retreat on Saturday. I don't remember the date, but it was a Saturday, and we spent about 6 hours together. And with that retreat, we focused on each of our board goals. So we went through financial stability, and we had a robust discussion around who we should be as a district, and what our goals are as a board for the district with relation to financial stability. We then moved on to student engagement, spent some time, student success, human capital, and community. So we gave time to each one of our major topics of board goals. And then from that, we found that they still made sense for us in many ways. We just developed these last year. We kind of had a redefining of our board goals, and so we had a lot of discussion last year as well. And there were just a couple of areas that we felt needed some additions. No subtractions, no tweaking really, but more additions. And one of the main areas was in financial stability. We have a statement in here that says the multi-year plan will be built so as to do a number of different things. And this bullet point says mitigate the effects of volatility and funding from the state. And what we added was identify and capture additional sources of revenue. So a lot of our discussion has been centered around how are we going to make sure our district never goes back to having a structural deficit. And we know that we're losing enrollment. And so instead of constantly just talking about cutting things because we're losing enrollment, let's find ways to go out and make money so that we can maintain all of our great programs. And then also in human capital, we added a bullet point under established and refined recruiting, interviewing, and hiring process. We have a number of bullet points, and we added this one. Identify and develop talented district employees for promotions through succession planning. So we want to really make sure that we're identifying our talent and finding ways to promote them into, whether it's a teaching position, an administrative position, whatever it might be, but we need to do a better job, we need to focus on developing our talent from within. And those are really the two areas that we modified.
Thank you. Yeah. And this is what they look like. We'll get this posted. It's not posted now publicly, but we have our goals laid out and you can review. Any other comments from the board?
I would just mention that we had a great trivia contest.
Yeah, who won that trivia contest?
So we want to share a little
thought I'd
anecdote.
mention because I happened to be the winner of that one. I know a lot about nothing, basically. You can say it that way.
Well, maybe at some
Tell-
point we'll
tell-
reveal what you won.
Tell them what you want, Eric, because sometimes
Yeah, there's a
some of us.
wonderful prize, but I wasn't prepared to model it tonight.
Some of us know
nice
that-
fuzzy little shoes that Stephanie brought in as a kind of a booby prize, I guess you could say. But
Sometimes losing is winning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
it was fun to have that interaction with each other. So thank you for that.
All right, we had a great time. Do we have any public comments on item 5.3, our board? Oh, sorry, Rich, go ahead.
On the goals, one of the things that I've been on the board a couple of years now, and one of the things that I really like about the goals that we're setting is that these are goals that we're looking at doing and achieving right now. We have some short, intermediate, and long-term goals, but these are actually things that we're focusing on and working on and actually implementing things. As Superintendent Decker mentioned, just the way housing and everything has been in our area, our enrollment's been going down a little bit. And so, we're creatively thinking outside of the box on how to, not only attract good employees, but attract students to the programs that we have here and making sure that we can accommodate them and continue to keep our numbers up, because we all understand that a school with good resources can provide, the best opportunities for our kids, and that's what we're all trying to do. And so I'm pretty happy with the goals that we have set. They're attainable, and I think that's they're a stretch, but they're attainable, and that's what I'm pretty happy about. And so I'm glad that everybody put the time in to really work on these things, and it's a good effort for everyone. So thanks.
Okay, and I'll turn it back to Bill.
Yeah, 2 points. One, I want to acknowledge Kai, our new student board member, came and was there virtually the whole time. And I'd sort of be interested in your thoughts about what you thought about us making sausage during that. But your input was measured and thoughtful as you were catching up to the freight train, and I thought it was very helpful for a number of the things. And for those in the audience and watching at home, and the second of the ones we added, I was very pleased with, because I have had conversations with district employees from both unions, our certificated union for teachers and the classified, to really highlight and make a deliberative, intentional step that we are going to grow our own talent and inspire people to their aspirations and have that be one of our stated objectives. And when we meet as a governance team, which is the 6 of us trustees, 5 elected, and our student rep with our superintendent, our conversations focus on which of these, how is what we're talking about related to a goal? Because if it's not, it strikes me, we then say, well, maybe we're talking too much in the weeds about something on a tactical level, or we may need to revisit and revalidate our goals because maybe a new goal or new priority has come up. And so these are not, and I really like the time we spent on it because they're not stale that sit on the shelf. They are guiding principles with some benchmarks along the way. That is how this school board makes decisions. And so, if you're in the audience or you're watching at home or, it comes up and there's a sense that maybe other or different refocused goals might, or the indicators under the 5 goals, that's really where the rubber meets the road, I think. Please let us know, because I think our intent is to sort of do a check-in with Jeremy about halfway through the year, and then next summer, we'll look at these again. And they are dynamic, but they are our guideposts. They are not a stale thing, and
It's not a wish list.
yeah, thank you. And thank you to the fellow trustees, because when we invest that time together, we had some pretty meaningful conversations, and I really appreciate that. It's a way for us to spend some time that we can never get at a meeting like this, which is the only time that we can ever talk, is when we have, on school subjects, is when we have a noticed meeting. And those times are, quite frankly, few and far between. So, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'm glad that you acknowledged Kai. I was also going to mention that he was there the whole time, and it was good that you had just started, but we got to spend the day talking through all of these with you. I think longer than we originally planned. I think maybe we kept you a couple hours longer, so we appreciated you being there and getting to kind of dive in with us on all of this. Super valuable. And yeah, I think our goals are really guideposts and pretty high level, but definitely the areas where we feel that we should be focusing our attention. Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Kai wants to say something. Sorry, Kai. Go ahead.
And so just to comment on that and what the previous board members were also saying, and I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity, not only just me, but also the student perspective and the student representative opportunity to provide input on those goals. And thank you. And the trivia was pretty fun, too.
Yeah, so I have to say it was mostly like 80s movies, and we need to get some that are more of like Kai's in his lifetime so that he can compete. This century, yeah, we'll try to do that for next time. All right, item 5.4 is our superintendent's report he's giving an update on safety measures in place related to the opening of school and the COVID Delta variant. Take it away.
Okay, well, hello, everybody, again. I want to go through just a number of the things that have... Okay, thank you. Go through a number of the things that we've been working on since the summer, really, and just kind of give a briefing on all that has come forward over the past 2 months. So on July 12th, we got some much anticipated guidance from California Department of Public Health. And essentially what they told us is their guidance was founded upon the following statement. All students must have access to safe and full in-person instruction and to as much instructional time as possible. So everything they built in terms of their guidance really is centered on that statement. And so the overarching intent of the guidelines is to make sure we're maximizing the days that students can stay in school and minimizing time outside of school. So first, they gave guidance on masks, and they've stated that these are one of the simplest and most effective ways to prevent in-school transmission of COVID. So indoors, they required all K-12 students and staff to mask. For outdoors, it changed. So masks are optional, their language, for all K-12 students outdoors. What we have used is the language highly recommended. And I know there was a blip in the last communication where it said that we were requiring masks outdoors. Our letters to the community go through a number of iterative processes. And in that, we had we had 3 people working on the letter. We had one person who put it in kind of as a thing that we should talk about. And that version got sent out to the public versus the final version. So I apologize to the board and also to the public for that confusion that I know it caused. So masks are not required outdoors. They're highly recommended by the school district. For quarantining, this has changed significantly as well. So obviously, if you are sick, you go home. That's the moral of the story. You go home, or you don't ever come in to school or work. And you actually cannot return until at least 24 hours have passed with no fever symptoms. And also, you can't simply take some Tylenol, reduce your fever, and say, look, I'm good. So it's got to be legitimate, no fever. And all your other symptoms have improved. And also, you have to have a negative test for COVID-19. So if you're sick and you go home with all COVID-like symptoms, you're not coming back until all those things are fulfilled. Now, exposure is different. So if there's a known exposure, meaning you were at a barbecue and somebody was there, they had COVID, you found out about it, you were indoors with them, and it was for half an hour, okay? You had an exposure. If you're vaccinated, you're not required to quarantine or isolate if you are asymptomatic, which many students are. If you're unvaccinated, you have a modified 10-day quarantine, and you can continue to attend if all the following are true. You're asymptomatic, you continue to mask, you have twice weekly testing during this 10-day quarantine, and you have to quarantine for all extracurricular activities at school, including sports and activities within the community setting. These are not our rules, just to clarify. These are the rules from California Department of Public Health that we have to abide by. Physical distancing changed significantly from last year. If you remember back to that aspirational statement, keep kids in school, there was no way that we could keep kids in school full-time last year because of the distancing requirement. So the state, based on a lot of the research done at CDC, has basically stated recent evidence indicates that in-person instruction can occur safely without minimum physical distancing. So there is no more distancing at school. Independent study, the board got a briefing recently, but I thought it was important to at least put this slide in here. And the moral of the story is we're required to offer independent study. Before, this was a board decision. Independent study was found in board policy. We could or could not if we, depending on what the board wanted to do. But with AB 130, we are required to. And there's a lot of language in here because they had to redefine a lot of what independent study is. And really, the only things I put in that I thought were important are live interaction. That means there has to be interaction between the pupil and whoever the certificated or classified staff member is. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but so the discussion we had a little while ago about the consent agendas with Hillsburg and Geyserville and now Kenwood, I think, was mentioned. Those are this independent study program, but we are taking the students from those districts who are not offering that program, and they can then get it through our school district, correct?
Correct. I didn't put that language in here, but within the Assembly bill, essentially it said if you cannot do it, let's say you're just too small, it's too heavy a lift, you can contract with another district, or an LEA really is what the language says, that can do it. And so we made it known that we can lead in this area and we're willing to work with other districts. And so they've been approaching us and saying, hey, we can't pull this off. We'd like to come and work with you. You know, do you have a question, Bill? Oh, I'm sorry. So I thought it was important. Last year, I often put up the Sonoma County metrics. And I'm putting this up because there's been more guidance that's come down from the state. And so I wanted to show you as of today where we're at based on the old kind of metrics that we dealt with last year. So there are a couple of areas that we're out of compliance in, and it's the unadjusted new cases per day. So we're at 19.6, which is high. Adjusted new cases per day per 100,000 residents, 18.6, which really you use the adjusted, not 19.6, and the old purple, red, and all those tiers. And then if you look down at percentage of adult ICU patients who are COVID positive in our county, we're up right now. We're over 30%, which is really where you get that X from. And then we're the no more than 20 confirmed COVID-19 hospitalizations any single day in the past 14 days. We haven't met that. So it's different than what we talked about last year, but COVID is still with us. And I think we all know that. We read the news. I thought it was important to at least show you kind of the most up-to-date metrics that we have. And I have some more slides that will go into depth. This was something that we monitored quite extensively last year, the new cases per 100,000, because it's what kept us in that purple tier that we always talked about in the last school year. And you'll see that in December, when this thing spiked, That was our bad time, December and January. And we went way down. I think we were all figuring we were in the clear and feeling good. I know I was. And then it started to creep up right around when school was beginning. And so if you were just going based on tiers, we did go back up in the purple tier. But what we found is it's not as transmissible by physical distancing as we thought. It's really more about masking based on what we're being told from the Department of Public Health. So just wanted to show you this slide and kind of explain what we're seeing. And then, yes, sir.
For the general public that's listening and wondering, why are we allowing our students to come back now when last year at this time we could not have? What's the best answer you could give them in your opinion or your experience level?
Well, I think that, again, I'm not a doctor, so I try to interpret what I'm given from the experts. And what I've heard from the experts is that as long as we're masked in school, distancing is not required. It's not the main mitigation strategy. Last year, they felt that distancing really was an effective mitigation strategy that, not effective, it was necessary. And so we may have been able to bring all the students back and provide learning just like we were doing this year, last year, but we had a 6-foot distancing mandate and then a 3-foot distancing mandate, and that was never going to allow us to get a full classroom in place. So we had to constantly run this dual hybrid system, and it was very difficult. With new updated research, that's gone away. That's what's allowed us to be able to do this. And they've also found that when outdoors, it's not as transmissible. And so there was a lot of concern last year about being outdoors, and it could still be given and passed, and it can. We all know it can, but it's not as transmissible as originally thought.
With that outdoor discussion that you made there, are we asking or suggesting or giving options to some of our teaching staff to take their students outdoors to use learning areas in different ways, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also, for lunch, we're trying to do as much outdoors as we can. We're trying to make sure we always have open windows, ventilation, which is going to be hard with the air quality that's probably coming. But all of those things, we're always trying to have airflow because it's been shown that that helps. Good questions. Testing positivity was another thing that we tracked often last year, and you can see, again, we went way down and then we've inched back up, and it looks like we're coming down a bit over the past, couple weeks. So why did I show all of this to you? Because on August 11th, we weren't the only ones looking at this data, so was the state. And the California Department of Public Health issued a state public health officer order, and I gave you a picture of them. So basically, the order went into effect on August 12th, and it's an order that if you are vaccinated, or you're required to be vaccinated, or you're required to be tested. Okay, so that's not the school making that decision, although I will say that we were working with our labor partners on something very similar. We had, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, we have great relationships with our labor partners. We really try to think things through together. And so we had already discussed some of what was going on and talked about potentially mandating vaccinations of our employees or mandatory testing. So employees who are not fully vaccinated must be tested at least once a week. So I'm actually going to bring up Julian. He's here. So Julian has been doing a lot of work because when we knew, again, we knew early that we were looking at potentially mandating testing for our unvaccinated employees. So we were kind of ahead of the game here. So when the mandate came down, we were actually ready to move. So we have partnered with National C19 Testing Solutions, and they had a $900 initial fee, but then it's free. It's something that the state gives to us. And we are testing from 7:30 to 11:30 on all of our campuses. So 5 days a week, we are providing our own testing in district. You can see where we're at. Monday is the high school, Tuesday's Cali. So there's a different site that is available to our staff every single day. And you can go to the other sites as well if you need to get tested. But this is not just for our staff and our students, this is also for our families. So if you're associated with Windsor Unified, come and use our services. We will give priority from 7:30 to 8 to our staff because our teachers start teaching at 8. We need to make sure that they can get in and get tested. There's both types of tests available, rapid and the PCR. PCR results come back in 24 to 48 hours and are more accurate. So use rapid, but if, what is it, Julian? You get a positive on the rapid, you still got to go get the PCR. And I think this created some confusion just based on the calls that we've gotten, the opt-out versus opt-in. So we talked a lot about this and how we should go about doing this. And mind you, if you remember, this mandate came down on August 11th, okay? We had to move quickly to try to partner with somebody. And so we didn't get this in place until this was, I don't know what date this was. Maybe this was a Monday or Tuesday. We finally got our partnership in place with National C19 Testing Solutions, I think on Friday, the Friday before the Monday when we had rolled this thing out. So we talked a lot about, well, how do we go about getting 5,000 students in this area and making sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to keep people safe. So if there's some exposure, we want to be able to make sure you can get tested right away. That was what was in our heads. And so oftentimes when you're doing you can do a passive agreement or you can do an active agreement. So opt out, opt in, whatever you want to call it. We thought, well, let's send this home for those parents or families who are uncomfortable with this and do not want their child tested. Then let's make sure they can send back something into us that says, I opt out of this. Versus sending it home and then we can only test those who filled out the paperwork. Because there are a lot of people who don't fill out our paperwork when it goes home. Having said that, we had a reason to move fast. We wanted to get it in place, but we didn't give families much time. And so I think it created some angst. And so in retrospect, we probably should have clarified that we're not going to force anybody to go get tested this first week. We're going to give you time because we're not actually. But I think that our messaging could have been better. So I think we own that and saying it to anybody watching now, we're not forcing any child to go and get tested right now. We're still trying to get our systems in place, and I'm going to have Julian come to speak about what we're seeing because this is what he's been going through. So Julian, could you please come up to the mic?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to the board for the opportunity. So we are running a testing program. We just started yesterday. Today's Tuesday, right? Yesterday. We just started yesterday at the high school. We are offering both tests, antigen and PCRs. We are trying to give some peace of mind to the community that we are trying to stay on top of any positive cases within the schools. We have already a number of students in observation that we will have to urge to be tested oftenly. We are thinking that students can be tested on their school so they don't have to, the families don't have to take them anywhere. I think that it's important to note that the numbers of people getting tested every day are increasing. Today we tested almost double the number of people that we tested yesterday. We have been testing family members, staff, and also students. And it's still a working process. We have some, the provider brought us some contractors that are helping us sustain the program, but it's quite a challenge. We're trying to have it in every site, so we are dealing with the challenges of finding a place in every site and trying to establish a program, right? A program that is sustainable and that will help us keep the students in school.
So if you look at some numbers, so we've had over 200 tests in 2 days, and we've had 0 outbreaks at school. We have been notified that 14 of our students are positive for COVID, but again, they haven't come to school, so we've never seen them. We've simply been notified why they're absent. And they're going to go through the protocols that are required. And then we have, as Julian said, we have 100 students in modified quarantine, so observation. That means they came into contact with somebody with COVID, right? And so we're going through the process of making sure Everything's on the up and up. They're being tested, but they're asymptomatic. They're asymptomatic. They're masking. Remember all those things I went through that allows them to stay? They're staying on campus because we want to maximize their time at school. Some early learnings for this year. Staffing is going to be an issue. There's a shortage, I think, nationwide. There's a major shortage in California. A number of places cannot open fully, restaurants, because of staffing. We're seeing it in food services, transportation, and custodial, especially. We don't have any subs, we don't have backups, and we're short hiring our people. And as Julian also said, it's much more difficult to monitor based on the new quarantine rules, especially because we have to track who's vaccinated, who is not. There's simply, it's a bigger lift than it was last year. We've also realized it's going to be very difficult for students to keep pace if they have to constantly go out to quarantine. We don't have the same hybrid model with the teachers zooming home. So let's say a child continues to come into contact with somebody who has COVID, but they're asymptomatic or they're not, they have to learn from home. Let's say that happens 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. That adds up to 50 days if it's 5 times, right? That's a huge amount of school missed. So what we're trying to figure out right now, and we're actively working with WDEA, is how do we meet this need? Because you can't ask teachers to do this, but it wouldn't be reasonable. You can't ask them to be basically a homeschool teacher and then also an in-class teacher. So we're trying to figure out the best way to meet this need and make it doable. Kids need to have instruction if they're going to be home for 20, 30, 40 days on their own. And then also, what we've realized is we need a portal for families to register students online for testing so that it's more straightforward. This week has been a learning experience. We're one of the first, well, I think we are the first district in this county that is doing this and pulling it off. And so we don't have anybody to look to say, how do you do it? We moved quick. And so we're learning as we go. And yes, Bill?
So that last bullet point of what does that look like and what does it accomplish when the family registers the student online for testing? What issue does it fix that needs fixing?
I'm going to have Julian come up because this is something that he let me know is probably needed based on his experience of the past 2 days.
Okay.
So we're going to get our own registration portal provided by the provider, right? And families will be able to register their students and register themselves, enter their health insurance information. So in case students need to be monitored by testing, families can consent in advance.
Okay, thank you. That's a good explanation.
Students that are 13 or older per law in California, they can decide to get tested on their own. So they can register on their own.
Can they also decide not to get tested on their own?
Say that again?
Can they also decide not to get tested on their own?
For sure. We're not thinking about forcing students or staff members to get tested. If somebody doesn't want to get tested, they will be, by the rules, they will have to stay home and not come to school. Those are the guidelines.
So just to clarify, because it seems like every day we hear something new in the news and it's ever changing. So didn't the governor just mandate that all teachers and staff have to be either tested, or have to be vaccinated, or if they're not, then they have to get tested each week? Is that right?
Yes, but the law has not come into effect yet.
Okay, so it's not in effect yet. So once it's in effect, then staff would need to be either vaccinated or they would have to test out
Yes, sir.
every couple of weeks. Okay, but that doesn't apply to the students, though.
That doesn't apply to students.
Okay. I mean, this is good, because the reason I'm asking, because a lot of people are watching at home, and the questions keep bubbling up, so that way
Yeah,
we can...
the purpose of the testing program is to give families an option. If they want to get tested on their own, they have to call their healthcare provider. They might have to drive to Santa Rosa or to Healdsburg. This is an in-house opportunity for them. So it's easy, it's fast, and it's
Free.
convenient for
And
everybody.
yeah, exactly, it's free too, right?
And it's free.
So if they don't have health insurance, they could just say, don't apply, don't have any, not applicable, and that doesn't disqualify them for coming in and tested.
It's free 99 for everybody.
It's what?
It's free 99.
Oh, free 99.
For anybody with a WUSD affiliation, of course.
Got it. Thanks.
One other point of clarification, Bill, that'll come to you, is that all of this is designed to try to keep our kids in school. So we're never going to force a child or a student to get tested. However, if they don't, they're quarantining. They're gone for 10 days. If they're negative, they're not gone for 10 days. They're gone for a day, 2 days, until we get the results back. So you're negative. So that's the value add for having on-site testing. Sir,
Are you done? I have a number of questions, but I'll wait until, are you finished with the?
I am.
Okay. So you talked about this sort of cyclical absence, right? If people are exposed and they didn't do the testing, to Rich's point, can we, and I would hope it would not come to this, can we involuntarily move a student, since we don't have the classroom teacher hybrid model that we had in March, April, and May to finish out last school year? Can we involuntarily move a student to independent study and say, you're going to be on distance learning? Or is
No.
that a parental decision only?
That has to be a joint decision.
Okay.
So we cannot
So
involuntarily.
not a unilateral decision by the,
Correct.
okay. When a student is ill with COVID, as opposed to being ill and out for some other reason, but is a teacher notified that the student is out for COVID so that
Great
they
question.
could monitor the other class members or be aware themselves?
That's a great question. And we've talked a lot about how we can make sure everybody knows the status of our students, and on Aries, if there's a way to have a banner come up when you go to take roll. So Julian, could you come sit with me? Because really, you're my expert here. We've talked a lot about this internally, and I don't know where we've settled. So does the teacher know, was the question, when a student has COVID? What is our process for alerting our staff?
So when we get a positive result, so meaning that somebody was exposing their classmates to COVID, the teacher and the family members are, they receive a notification immediately by the principal. And I'll give you an example. Just today, we had an exposure in one of our classrooms. 47 families have been notified in English and Spanish that their children have been exposed, and what are the requirements in terms of those students staying at school. Families can pull their students. They can say, hey, I'm going to take my children from school for 10 days. That's perfectly acceptable. But we are trying to support them in a way that will let students stay at school.
So I'm a little confused, and that's why I want to ask a question. So if we've had, the slide we had earlier said that we've had 200 tests, we've had nobody come up positive. So
We
if.
have had positive, sir.
No, it
What's
was that
that?
no one was exposed at school.
People from home brought it.
Okay, okay, but that's, okay, so we've had a bunch of tests, and we've had no positives, but then somebody today was exposed, 47 kids were exposed, is that what you said?
Yeah.
How, were they exposed at school?
Yeah, they were exposed. No. We have had positive results in our tests. Folks have tested positive in our test. In 2 days, we have had positive cases already.
I thought our slide said 0.
No, we haven't had any in-house,
Starting here and spread.
in-house transmissions. We have had none. So
Okay.
nobody has contracted COVID after an exposure in one of our classrooms.
Got it. Okay, so,
Right? Which is the only thing we can do. There's no way we can prevent positive cases from coming to school, but we want to prevent any in-school transmission.
Got
We
it.
don't want a teacher to expose
a student or vice versa.
and get, exactly.
Got it. So here's a little bit of my concern. Just about a year ago now, my grandson was born, I was in the hospital with them, and I got COVID. And it was interesting,
after I got it, then everywhere I went or anybody I told that, oh, hey, I had COVID, whatever, it was kind of interesting. I felt, and I'm not that sensitive of a person, but man, I could tell, everyone like, ah! It wasn't 6 feet, it was like 600 feet. And I couldn't have got invited to a party if I won the lottery. So I'm concerned, and I remember how that felt. And so I'm concerned with younger kids, their feelings, and how they're perceived. I'm concerned with how we do this, and I don't know exactly how to address it, but I've seen it in sports. What happens if a kid gets COVID? Not any of their fault at all. They just happen to catch it. I don't think anybody goes out and looks for it, but they get it, and all of a sudden, they were playing with their team, and all of a sudden, their team has to quarantine. And when we just looked at the little slide there, no extracurricular activities for that period of time. The pressure of that kid now all of a sudden, dude, you're the one that went and got us all exposed, and now we can't play the game, we can't do these things. What safeguards do we have in place to, I don't even know how you could keep it anonymous, because if all of a sudden you're the kid not at school the next day and say, well, we had whatever, and we have to watch it. Kids are pretty smart, they can figure it out. So how are we mitigating kids and pressures and social things and teachers who are trying to do their best from putting extra pressure on kids, social pressure on kids of they did something or they didn't do something. Those are the kind of things that I'm concerned about with how are we addressing this. I'm a business owner. This whole thing with HIPAA and privacy laws and all that stuff, how do you manage that? How is it that I can't talk to any of my employees about any of their health issues, except for all of a sudden now with COVID, I can know everything about you because of COVID. I have the COVID card. I can ask you anything. I can tell you anything. I can, mandate a whole bunch of different things because of the COVID card. How are we protecting our kids from a lot of unnecessary pressures, social pressures, as well as otherwise, with our policies and our procedures that we're going forward with?
So the identity of any individual that obtains a positive COVID test result is kept confidential. We're not informing who is positive to COVID. We're trying to prevent what you're referring to is COVID stigma, is when someone gets COVID, they get blamed for getting it. How you got it, where, what did you do? We're trying to prevent that not only for our students, but also for our staff and our family members. So the identity of anybody that has COVID is kept confidential. So let's say we have a classroom, somebody gets a positive result on a test, we notify everybody that someone within that classroom got a positive result, but the identity of those that got the result is kept private. We have a very good team of nurses. They are doing a great job at handling all the health effects of getting a positive result. They are consulting with the California Department of Public Health almost every day. And when we get a positive result, they are working in conjunction with the principals, so everybody gets notified that they have been exposed, and we try to provide them with as much support as we can. The family of those affected get a phone call. We reach out to the families of those students that have been exposed, letting them know what are the implications of this exposure and how we can support them to stay in school.
To follow up, so if a kid hasn't been vaccinated and they're exposed, or they get COVID, they're out for a period of time.
Say that again?
If a student gets COVID, they're out for a period of time.
Yes.
What happens Now, and then, or if they're exposed, they're out for a period of time. If they've been vaccinated, then they're not out for a period of time, right? They're just
No.
under observation?
Students that are exposed can go regardless of their vaccination status. Students that are exposed in any classroom can go into a modified quarantine, meaning that if they comply with certain requirements, they can stay at school. So after an exposure, students are not being sent home.
Can I ask a question that's directly related? So I was thinking maybe we could walk through examples and you could tell me how it would play out. So I want to pretend I'm a student, I'm in elementary school, I go to school and I start feeling sick. What happens?
So if you start feeling sick, we have to send you home because you're sick.
Okay,
right?
and my parents decide they want to get me tested and use the and use the testing. So I do that and I'm positive. What's
Yes.
the next step from there?
So if you get a positive result, or your classmates and your teachers are going to receive an email and a phone call in Spanish and in English, letting you know that you have been exposed and what are the instructions
Okay.
according to your exposure.
And then for me, the person who has COVID, how long am I out of school? Is it a certain number of days or is it until I have a positive test result?
So usually if you get a positive test result, you have to stay out of school for 7 days. On day 8, you should get tested. And if you test negative, you can come back to school. So usually it will take 10 days, usually. But
Okay.
it can be much shorter if we get quick results back with
Okay.
a negative test.
Right, and then if I'm in the exposure group, what, do I need to not go to school the next day?
No, if you are in the exposure group, we're going to wait 3 days. After 3 days,
Okay,
you're going to get tested,
okay,
right? That's your first test. And within the next 7 days, you're going to get tested twice. So in order to stay at school, you have to keep your mask on all the time because you've been exposed and we don't know if you might have COVID. You have to keep your mask on all the time. Refrain yourself from participating in extracurricular activities because you've been exposed. And 3, test twice during the first 10 days after the exposure. I just got 10 minutes ago, I just got a notification from CDPH that they're saying when you get exposed, you can test the next day to make sure that you don't have it already. So they are trying to
Oh, okay.
support students for getting testing.
so it looks like another requirement is gonna, or there's another option, which is you can take a first test the next day to see if you already have it.
And then within the next 10 days, you have to get tested
And
again.
then 2 more.
So they are
Okay.
recommending that you get tested on day 1. Let's say you got exposed today, get tested tomorrow, and then 3 days after, you get tested again.
Okay, and then
if
one
you-
more
and if you
time
test, one more
after
thing.
that.
And if you test negative twice during those first 5 days, you test out of the modified quarantine time.
Okay, so you can be done earlier if you do the 3 testing option. But then what if, so say that we're this elementary student, my parents say, no, we're not going to do the testing. How long am I out of school before I come
So
back?
if you decide not to get tested and you're exposed, you have to stay home for 10 days.
So 10
If you
days.
are COVID positive and you decide not to get tested, you have to stay home for 14 days. It's an option.
Okay, thank you for walking through that with me.
And the good news of that scenario that Stephanie shared is that we are testing daily at all of our different school sites. So if a student from Mattie Washburn needs a test, they can get one in town that next morning right away.
For
My
free.
daughter took a test
Yeah.
and she didn't get results. She couldn't get an appointment for a test through Kaiser for like 4 days. So she went somewhere else, another town, to get a test. And then it still took 3 or 4 days to get results. Thankfully, it wasn't a positive result for her, but we're offering a great service to give testing every day to our school staff and families. So.
Go ahead, Bill.
Did you need to finish anything, Rich, or?
I had one. So let's take that, I like Stephanie's way of going through that. So let's take Rich Carnation. I'm a student, I've been vaccinated, and now I'm exposed to somebody who might have had COVID. Am I precluded from extracurricular activities?
No, you're not because you're vaccinated.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't do this scenario.
Well, you had
Okay,
to
well, I
leave
did
one
an
for me.
elementary school student, but yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that was,
Unless
Is
you
there
have any
anything else?
symptoms, unless you have symptoms.
well,
Okay.
okay, yeah, so that was my follow-up, because some people that have, I know folks that have been vaccinated and they still got COVID. And so, now, I don't know anybody who's had COVID and got vaccinated and then got COVID again. So I haven't heard of that one yet. And that's good, because that's me. So, yeah, I had to make sure I had everything covered. I'm older.
Okay,
But
Bill.
anyhow,
So I would very much like, when we finish, to maybe hear from Pete from the overall teacher's perspective, and Principal Williams from how at his middle management, how his reign is doing with his folks at the high school. But I had a couple questions. You mentioned nurses and you mentioned contractors. So do we have contractors that are doing the actual implementation of the testing program? Is that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have contractors through this provider.
Okay.
that are-
Now, do they do the notifications, let's say, of the 47 exposed families of students there that you gave as an example? Who does that?
No, we do that in-house.
Okay,
We support the nurses, myself, we support the principals to notify their students and staff
Okay.
of the situation.
so let's be a little bit more granular, Julian, about when we do the notification. Are you doing all of them? Do you connect the administration at a particular school to it? Who actually does those 47 kids, 47 families? How does that?
So we get in one of the principal's office and we work as a team.
Bill, I think
We've done it with the principals.
No,
we've done it
I'm
with
not
Brian.
criticizing. I'm just wondering, do we
That-
need to hire more people to help with that?
That's what we're talking about, to
That
answer your
seems to me the
question.
contract tracing conundrum that we had. You mentioned nurses. Are those our nurses that are on staff?
Sure.
Do we need to get more USD? I'm not negotiating here, but if we needed that, it seems to me that's a growth area, sadly, as we educate people. I mean, it took us a half hour to figure out the one slide we're looking at now. So I'd be interested to hear about that as we go.
We've talked a lot about this, and I think we're learning through this week,
Right.
because this is the first time we've had such robust testing, and with such robust testing, it requires a lot more
Sure.
contact
You remember the
tracing.
political issue, if we don't test, we won't
Correct.
find positives.
And I would like to share a perspective.
Sure, and I have a couple
about
other
something
questions,
that you
though.
said.
Yes.
I think that we are facing a difficult situation, but we are trying and we're working hard as a team to have a program in place that will allow us to keep students in school. So I see it as a positive. Every challenge, if we overcome it, we will be closer and closer to be sure that we can keep our students in school.
So, Julian, I'll just say, you don't know me well enough. When I ask pointed questions, it's usually to figure out how we can support and do better. And I think it might be from what we can do is provide resources. And if we need to reallocate or rejigger resources, I'm all for that. I did not mean those questions as a criticism. I have two final questions. One, we talked about if you are vaccinated under the second bullet of known exposure, which are vaccinated, but the vast majority of our students cannot get vaccinated yet. And so we talked, they're simply not age eligible. And we talked a little bit with a joint meeting we had, whatever that was, 3-4 weeks ago with the town council in here about coordinating if and when there are youth vaccines available, and there are some now that our older students in the high school age can do, and figuring that out and facilitating that through the town. So I think that's a plus. But from vaccinated documentation, I was a little late coming to this meeting because I was working with one of my fire district clients that I work with in my day job, and there is a tremendous challenge in the healthcare and emergency services fields where there is ultimately getting to where the teachers are going to go staff to have vaccinated or testing, right? It's tracking and getting those vaccination cards and the record of who is actually vaccinated. How are we doing that? And there's like the students, which is a small minority of our students, just because of their younger ages, they're not eligible yet, but also with our staff. How is that going? And I'd like to sort of hear it from you, and then I'd be very interested to hear from Pete and Brian about how we're doing that, because Brian represents a slice of our student population where I imagine some of our students are vaccinated now. And I'm curious, do we know that? Do they report it to us? Do we keep those records so that they are, for lack of a better word, pre-registered as part of the vaccinated pool?
I think like 10 to 15 days ago, we were fully authorized as a district to do vaccination verification. We can do vaccination verification of our students and our staff, but we don't have those records yet. It's something that we are trying to incorporate into the whole program, right? We're trying to be respectful of folks' views and perspective about the whole thing. So we're trying to be very careful on how we approach it.
So Bill, just so you know, so we get the mandates from the state often, and then we wait for our lawyers to weigh in. And so we were waiting, as you know, as a lawyer. And so we were waiting, and we just got the form just within the past few days from school and college legal services on what we should send out to get the information.
Thank you. You have given us very thorough answers to a whole wide variety of questions. Appreciate it.
And you're going to do it a little bit more. Did you have a?
I was just going to make a statement that Jeremy mentioned earlier, and Julian, you've referenced it as well, that we're kind of the point of the spear on this one. Our neighbors to the south that have 160,000 students or employees, whatever, it is, Santa Rosa Unified, not 16,000, I think it is, I'm sorry. Gave them way too many, 16,000 students. They haven't started a process like this. They don't have testing at their sites. They're not doing all the work that we've done. I mentioned a lot of districts in Northern California will be giving you a call when they hear that we're doing all this wonderful work. And that's some of your resources and time as well. But thank you for being out front on this and not just waiting and having us say, well, we'll wait till Santa Rosa does it, or we'll wait till Petaluma does it, and then we'll figure out what we can do. We're out front on this, and we want our students to be successful, and we want our kids to be in class and our teachers to be supporting them. And I appreciate that and applaud that. So well done.
I'd say the
From my opinion.
credit goes to Julian on this one. He's been the point person for the entire thing, and it's his design.
So just for clarification, it's that service that we're providing for the testing that were the tip of the spear. The rules and the regulations that we're following, that's what all districts are having to follow.
Correct.
Right? So I didn't want anybody to think that we're doing some things that we're ahead of the curve. No, we're actually implementing what everybody's supposed to implement. We're just actually providing this service for the testing so we can get our kids tested quicker if they want, so they can get back to school quicker.
Correct.
And if I can point something else, this is the latest of the mitigation strategies that we've been taking to keep our students and staff safe, right? We have had vaccination clinics for staff. We have had vaccination clinics for students. We have had vaccination clinics on sites, and now we're offering testing. And I think that we are trying to, as I said, all of us work together to keep students in school.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my last question, but it's the one I write. Could you, just for people that are watching, what is the test?
So it's a quick 30 seconds nasal, very gentle swallow.
It's like a Q-tip in your
shallow,
nostril,
yeah.
right?
That nasal
Okay.
swab.
Just so that way people and kids weren't thinking they're going to have to get a shot or anything else. It's just a Q-tip.
Yeah, it takes 30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Julian.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I really appreciate it.
And-
I have one more question for Jeremy before we open it up to public comment. And it's changing subjects completely to transportation. And I don't know how much you were planning to discuss this maybe at a later time, but as everyone knows, we didn't run general ed busing. So I just wanted to touch a little bit more on that, what we can share in terms of when we're thinking we'll get that back up and running. I know we said August 30th. How's that going?
I'm not sure yet. So the reason I'm not sure yet is because we've been working with CSEA, that's our classified bargaining unit, obviously, on some language around compensation for bus drivers to try to be a more attractive place for people to work. As well as there was some contract language that I don't want to say we disagreed on, but we were interpreting it a different way. And so we clarified that with an MOU, and it has to do with contracting for services. And so what we're doing right now is we are in negotiations with the company because the contract that we had was for the full year. And we want to make sure that we're not supplanting our own employees. So we want to make sure that if we can hire into these positions, that we no longer have to contract for the services. So there needs to be some sort of 30-day, 60-day out clause. And it was silent on the matter in the initial contract. So we're working on that aspect, as well as CSEA is taking a vote tomorrow, I believe, on the MOU that's been negotiated. So you asked me where we're at. I don't know exactly, because what we need to do is hire more drivers. So we've got one of our drivers back, one of the two that dropped late. One of them is back. And then we still need the two other drivers from the contracted services. So now we probably need 3 drivers to contract with, because I'm not explaining this very well. We had 4 shortages. 2 of them were because 2 of our drivers went away, and then we just simply couldn't fill 2 other positions. One of the 2 drivers who went away for personal reasons is back now. And so really we have a need for 3 drivers to be able to run gen ed busing. And so that would be contracted for services, but if we could potentially be a more attractive place compensation-wise, we may be able to get somebody in before August 30th. We simply don't know if we can. So it's up in the air. We're hopeful, but this is hard. It's really hard to get this done. There just simply aren't drivers available. And I know that I've talked to Trustee Carnation as somebody who has to have drivers with an A class, and they just don't exist, and they make a whole lot of money working for private industry. So it's just tough.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And do you think we'll be able to contract for those 3 roles once we get the language sorted out?
I think we're willing to. It's expensive, I will say. It's going to hit our general fund, but we're going to do it because we know how important it is to provide the service. But again, they have to be available through the contracted agency as well. They're short too. So, West County is a big provider of transportation services in our area. They're 40 drivers short. 40. Everybody's in the same spot. So I say that because everybody's trying to contract for services, right? And we had 2 drivers that were available, but again, we have to be, we can't pay for 4 people when we only need 2 for the whole year. And so hopefully those drivers are still available, but I couldn't tell you that right now.
Okay, thank you. We'll go out to public comment. Does anyone have any comment on this item 5.4? You can come up to the podium. We haven't done this in a while in this format, so you come up to the podium and go on ahead.
All right, Pete Stefanisco, WDEA president. So I went and got tested on Monday morning at the high school. The design is better than the rollout at this point, right? I got there at 7:25, and there was a few people in front of me, and the first test didn't happen until almost 8 o'clock. And so at the high school, that's a half-hour window for every staff member who wants to be tested on Monday to be tested. And there's really no way for a high school teacher to be anyplace else at 7:30 in the district and get to class at 8 o'clock if they have it. So more people to help that, and we have to do appointments. That's really the only way. So even if I had to make one someplace else, I might get a teacher to cover me, but if I knew there was a 10 or 15-minute window in there, that would change everything. Plus, the way they had us do it, we had to manually write our information. So they had to retype like our email addresses or something if they were going to notify us with the test results. I went back about an hour later during a break, and I got handed a Post-it note with my initials, my birthday, and negative on it. Not reassuring for like, oh, I'm getting on a plane, here's my test results, right? So I'm sure those things will get better, but if we are putting all employees in the district have the opportunity to be tested, and as we start to see some more cases come up, we need to really make sure that they have an appointment in a window on their campus. Now, some of the other campuses start a little bit later, so they have a little extra time, but they're also smaller staff, so, just be aware. Very appreciative of the work that everyone has done to keep us going here. Teachers are really excited to be back, a little nervous and scared, depending on their vaccination status and the students that they teach. And that's why the biggest issue is what to do if we get these people out, either teacher or students, out quarantined for 5 or 10 days. What kind of instruction do they get? A little easier at secondary maybe than elementary. And so we're looking forward to solving that issue.
Pete, go ahead. Just a question, and this is, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. So if I was a teacher and you had to fill something out the first time, but I'm assuming that once you filled it out, the school would say, okay, Pete or Rich, they need to get tested each week, so they would have that form already filled out.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I'm just thinking out loud, I wonder if it's possible that if certain teachers or staff, you're in your class teaching, and you could set an appointment, and we could have somebody that could go around to the teachers that are in their class at certain periods of time. Just, I mean, it takes about, I'm assuming about a grand total of maybe 20 seconds to take the test.
Floating sub.
But somebody that, well, just, hey, Pete, at the end of your class, here, you walk out, and hey, Pete, I'm here for you. Psh, take your test real quick and go. I don't know if that would be convenient or not, or intrusive or not. I'm just throwing it out there that,
There's a lot of different ways to spin it, right? I mean, I would do it in front of my class and show everybody here, this is what it looks like, right? Get yourself tested, but not everyone's comfortable with that.
Right.
And so, but that's not a bad idea, especially, once we see the people, the staff who are unvaccinated as they get weekly tests, they're really going to have maybe a small window for it, and we want to make sure that they have an accommodation. Hopefully, it will provide some incentive to get vaccinated if they need more incentive. So that, because it is kind of odd, right? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if I have no symptoms and I'm vaccinated, but I know I've been exposed 100% to a positive case, I still come to school the next day. Right? I mean, those are the guidelines. So I think that's hard for us to get our heads around because it's so different than where we were last year. But the hope is really to keep kids and staff in school. It is just so much better, even with masks on, it's still so much better in person. And I think we're already seeing the enthusiasm around campuses.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Maybe a follow-up to Chris or to Jeremy. So Rich mentioned an idea, and I kind of threw it out there without my microphone, that we have like a floating sub that takes care of some of those situations potentially. How are we with, you mentioned, hiring new employees and getting special people to come in for driving and things like that. How are we with the substitute pool if we end up having teachers that need to go out? Are we finding enough people that can cover for us, do you think?
No. Short answer is no. This is going to be a problem. It's another staffing issue that I didn't highlight, but this will be another issue that we've got to work through. We've had internal discussions. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And to Pete's point, this week, honestly, we've got to figure out where the holes exist in this process. That's really what this week is. We're finding them. I know Julian's troubleshooting every day, and we're going to try to solve this thing and make sure it's, helpful and not harmful as we move forward. But Eric, no, there aren't subs. And to be honest, we've also talked internally, we may need to do something about compensation, be more attractive. What can we do to attract more subs in our district?
Great. Brian?
Good evening. So the question in terms of our staff's ability to deal with all of the extras that go with COVID, it does take a major portion of several of our staff members to do all these mitigation factors. So the question is not whether or not can we do the mitigation factors, because we're going to do them, because it does the most important thing, and that's keep kids in school. The real question is what's not getting done because we're spending all this time with mitigation factors. And I have to say that I have to give kudos to our district level directors who have just been excellent to work with and super responsive. And that's one of the reasons why we're so ahead of the game, is because one phone call and we can get answers, or they'll find us answers. So that's been the best part about this, is being able to work as thought partners with our directors. Chris got us a nurse when we need us a nurse. Lisa and I have been going back and forth about how to do the independent study, at a high school level. So it's that part of it has just been working really, really well. And no questions, so I slowly back away.
Before you go, do you,
We just wanted to make it awkward.
yeah,
before we called
you
it back.
almost made it back as far, Julian, I was asking him, and he mentioned vaccine verifications. Do you have any sense, or would you have a way of even knowing what portion of your students?
I know a way not to do it, and that's to give public surveys
Okay.
to students. So I think more than anything, we would handle this like any other health issue.
Yes.
And handle it through our health office in terms of verifications. And so that's how we would want, we get vaccine status of all of our students. We know every other vaccine that they have. So I think the benefit for them is for us to know whether or not they've been vaccinated, because that directly impacts how we handle whether or not they're on, this quarantine or that quarantine, whether they can play sports or not play
Right.
sports, all of that.
Yeah, I was thinking from the incentive that Rich was talking about from extracurriculars, that, having that information be out there to say, this is not, I guess it's intrusive, but yeah, those are the times we're in. Here is the individual benefit and the collective community benefit by having this piece of data, which, again, you can't have a teacher that doesn't pass a PPD test, but, we're still working through that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
There's been a lot of conversation about HIPAA, right, through this. I know on social media, there's plenty. It's a HIPAA violation if we share data that we're not supposed to share, not asking for data that we need to have. So just to clarify that point.
Actually, Brian, you sat down quick, but I know that's okay. I got a kind of, well, it's kind of a question maybe for Brian and Julian and everybody, but I don't understand and if it's a state or a fed or if this is a local thing. So if a kid's exposed, they can come to school, right? But okay, so they're asymptomatic, they can come to school. How come they can't play sport? If they can come to school and there's no distance, I'm not putting this on any of you. This is we're all learning together, we're gonna track it down. Sometimes it's a wives' tale or whatever, however you say it, but because it doesn't make sense to me. So if Rich Carnation is in school and I'm asymptomatic and I've been exposed, I can go to school, there is no physical distancing, then why can't I participate in my extracurricular activity?
I don't know.
I would
Cool.
say, Rich, because that's what I was doing
Julian
3
is
hours this
coming.
afternoon. It's because the California Department of Public
He's gonna
Health says
show
so.
us.
Correct.
So that's a California, so.
Yes.
Because I'm wanting to find out
Basically,
who the person is that I get to call. and
He's the guy
say-
in the white coat, he showed the picture.
Yes, that's who you called. That's been
That's
the
our,
guidance
that's our
to us,
Dr.
and we
Fauci in
enforce the
California.
guidance.
So the reason why students are forbidden from participating in extracurricular activities after they've been exposed is because, one, practicing sports is a privilege, right? It's not, you don't have a right to play sports. It's a privilege, right? Two, when you play sports, there's a lot of physical exertion, so using masks is not as easy. So usually, folks that participate, that do sports, take their masks off to participate.
Okay.
And three, because you are breathing and others are breathing close to you, some sports are close contact, it's easier to get COVID through playing sports with somebody else. The main focus right now is to keep students in school. So the California Department of Public Health is trying to focus all of their effort on keeping them inside the classroom and not expose them more by having them practice sports when they've been exposed already.
So just so that way you're 100% clear on this. My comments they're not directed at you.
I know.
Okay, but when I hear that they can come to school, but sports are a privilege, just a little thing in the back of my mind, it starts saying, oh, I'm going to incentivize them to get vaccinated when maybe they don't want to or otherwise. So, and I'm not going to get into that because that's between the student and their parent and their doctor. And that's where I believe that should be.
Well, so, sir, one thing that is important.
Okay.
You are banned from extracurricular activities as a student when you are exposed and unvaccinated. Vaccinated athletes can keep practicing sports.
That was just what I said. So if I, for whatever reason, I'm an athlete, there's one inside of me.
Deep inside of you, sir.
There's a distance runner deeply inside here.
Marathon runner.
Marathon,
Sure.
yeah, there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is all the reserves for the whole 26 miles. If I don't want to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and I'm playing sports, I'm a little concerned that there might be a policy here that someone is putting in place to say, oh, This is how we will make them do something they don't want to do, because we'll take that privilege away from them. I have a real deep disdain for that kind of thinking, where someone's going to manipulate somebody's behavior to do something they want them to do that's different than what they would otherwise want to do.
But
Because-
Rich, so Julian's not they're making a choice. They have a choice. Part of what the California Department of Public Health says, if you make that choice, for whatever reason, good, ill, informed, not informed, there are consequences of making that choice. And one of the consequences, as I understand it, is unvaccinated, exposed people do not get to mix in extracurriculars. So that's a consequence, and they know it beforehand, and is that, so that it's a choice, though. You're missing, I think, the point that the individual, their families, whoever, because if it's a minor.
No, I get the part that is choice, but I want to know who is it that decided that they get to play?
The California Department of Public Health.
No, there's got to be somebody who's,
Show his picture.
well, I saw his
We
picture,
go
but.
back to the
That's
presentation.
where it comes from. Yeah.
No, I get it. But see, but that person said, you can go to school, you can choose to go to school, vaccinated or unvaccinated, if you're exposed, but you don't get to choose to participate in extracurricular sports or extracurricular activities. And I understand and there is some logic to the exertion and what have you. But you talked about, people taking their masks off. They take their mask off when they're outside, but on the sports that are inside, they still have to wear the mask inside, which I think that's also crazy, because if you're that close,
So Rich, if I might, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
We don't have any control over this, so I'm not sure where we're going with that. The guy with the white coat's in here, we can probably get you his address. I'm serious, in all seriousness,
No,
we
that-
can't do anything about this right now.
No, I agree.
Right.
But I wanted to know who it is, because, look, people ask us, why are you doing these silly things, right? Some things silly, some things not. It depends on whose perspective it is. But the bottom line is, if we don't know who's doing it, I want to be able to say, call Stephanie. Stephanie came up with this policy, or whoever it is.
It's the California Department of Public Health.
Yeah, but it
That's the
literally is
answer,
that
because there's
guy.
not a person
Like it
necessarily.
literally, that's not a stock photo, like it actually is
Well,
that guy.
I mean, case in point, if we were to say, hey, the Windsor School Board did it, or the Windsor School District did it, right? Well, who in the Windsor School District did it? Did you, the superintendent, do it? Do we as a board do it? So the California Department of Health, right?
The director.
Who is that guy, or that person? That's what I'm saying. And I showed you showed us a picture.
Yep.
But is that person the person who decided this policy, or are they the superintendent and there's a board that decides that policy?
I don't know the answer, but I believe ultimately they probably represent our governor, who probably signs off, but I couldn't tell you that for certain, Rich. This is beyond my scope.
I'm going to breathe deeply and be calm, because I do think we need to move on. I mean,
Sure.
it's up to this. On December 7th, 2020, Governor Newsom announced Tomas Aragon, with some cool accents, MD, is the next director and state public health officer. He is the one who makes these decisions for the state of California, which are followed then by the California Department of Education, which comes through SCO. But that they want the address. That's the person who does it, all right? And so unless and until we're going to follow or make our own health guidelines, which we are not, and I don't think we're qualified to, and that's where that answer comes from. And I'm sorry if we were getting contentious. That was not my intention, but.
Oh, no, it's
But
not.
the challenge I have is I don't want people to even begin to start to think that we have the autonomy to make these decisions.
No, so you're misunderstanding what I'm
Okay.
saying. I don't believe that, I know that we don't have the autonomy
Okay.
to do that. I want to understand, because some of the decisions that we are being asked to implement don't follow logic. For example, this year, right now, physical distancing isn't an issue anymore. But last year, the same people that were in charge of whatever we're supposed to do, 3 feet and 6 feet, or hell's coming, what happened in 1 year, not even a year, in less than a year, poof, no more physical distancing. Why?
Vaccines.
It's not, you can still be in there whether you're vaccinated or not. The physical distancing has gone away. The whole point, Bill, is I'm not as confident in some of the things that we're being asked to do. And on some of the things that don't make sense, I'd like to know who that person is that we can get information from and say, why did you make that decision? What is the science behind that? So we can get information, because as we learn more, we can ask more, and then either, sometimes the answer is, we don't know and we're taking our best guess. I'm good with that. I'm not a doctor. But some things, just as a layperson, don't make any logical sense. So I just want to know, who is that person that we can go find? And you brought it up, so now we can do that. And so that was my question, because some of the things that I see what they're doing in the extracurricular area, it doesn't seem to, the logic doesn't follow in my mind. And so I just want to know where that was coming from.
And I think another thing that I heard was understanding the process by which those decisions are being made, which sometimes is at a different level, and we aren't familiar with, the procedure for coming down with the policy guideline. But I do think I saw someone in the audience who was going to come up and make a public comment, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that. Yes.
My comment was pretty much the same, what Rich just brought up.
Pull them.
Sorry.
Can you say
And
who
if
your
you could
name?
tell us your
My name's
name.
Becca.
Thank you.
Basically, I do have an issue with this whole, I know it's not your guys' fault, but there is a big issue with me with this COVID rule, with the COVID rules. It makes no sense to me. It should not matter if a child is vaccinated or not. They should still be able to play their sport. That is called discrimination. If you want to, it's not up to you to decide, or even the health department to decide if a child is vaccinated, or an adult for that matter. It is their body, it is their choice, just like an abortion. It is their body, it is their choice. That's what everybody preaches. Well, what's the difference with the vaccination? If I want my child to get vaccinated, that is up to me. If I want my child not to get vaccinated, that again is up to me. They should not be penalized based on their vaccination status, in my opinion, and the opinion of many that I know that may not speak out like that. But that's my main thing. It makes no sense. I mean, I would like to know where the science is, because everything's based on science with this whole COVID stuff. Where's the science? I know several vaccinated people who have gotten COVID. I know 2 people which have been reported in the news that have died, that have been vaccinated, and they had COVID. So where is the science that vaccinated people do not carry COVID, do not get COVID, do not spread COVID? I'd like to know. And why can't you guys find the answer to that? Why can't you ask your health board? The health board has 2 different rules. I know of somebody who, basically, the health department has people in their own department that have different opinions about this whole COVID thing in relation to kids and their sports. And the one at our school, which I'm assuming, I don't know what his name is, but this guy back here that keeps talking, he is our representative. Well, his opinion is different than the one at the health department. And yes, I do have a specific example, but I'm not going to name any names. But it has happened in the last week where somebody was told if they were exposed to COVID or they had COVID, they did not have to get tested for 90 days. And then
Sorry about that. Go ahead and continue.
and then the guy representing our school said, that's not the case. Nope, that's not what we're doing. Well, who do you believe? I mean, you have one health department person saying one thing, and then you have the guy representing this school doing his own thing. That's how I look at it. Like, why aren't the health department people on the same page? Do you not understand that parents question that? There's so many.
I spoke with you last year. You told me to give you a call back if the rates were still in the twos. We're still there right now. The rates were really
I think we're
unpredictable
having
for
a
bit.
telephone
We're
malfunction, but
just
hold
sweet spots.
on.
Call me
Sorry.
at
But Becca also-
Wait, I am going to respond.
909 and we
Okay.
can talk about that no point no junk
Sorry, I
feeling.
didn't mean to be like,
We're
just,
still
I was
doing
going
it.
to
We
tell
can
anyone.
There's no point in that. So I would like the board to look into some answers. I don't know who we can go to or who we can ask, but the science doesn't prove it. The science is not, there's no evidence with the science that I am hearing and reading about vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Maybe when it first came out, but no, not anymore. There's just too much, too many articles coming out where vaccinated can get COVID still, and they can pass it on, and they can die from it. So there's no reason why they should not have to be tested or quarantined or out of school for 10 days or not attend their sport. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to respond on behalf of the board because I have a few things that I want to say. Just as an initial matter, we have pretty robust discussions up here, but I want to say that we work very collaboratively and have a very strong relationship with one another. So I don't want anyone to get the idea because we seem to be having a disagreement or that we're not, like, everyone has different views, right? So we have conversations where we don't necessarily agree, but we have a very high level of respect for one another. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that. And we also have a very high level of respect for our staff. So I would just say, like, you know, the person who works for our district is Julian, and we have a high level of respect for him and for everyone who works here because they're working for our kids. At the end of the day, they're working for our kids. That's why they're here. As to the public health question, I mean, I think that's really, we follow public health, California Department of Public Health guidance, and we have for the big, I mean, we hadn't really ever had to think about it before the pandemic to this extent, but that's the guidance that we follow. And it really comes to us, and in terms of the policy and procedures, my understanding is that that's what we're doing, is we're following those policies and procedures that are, whether someone feels a certain way about something or doesn't, does not impact our policy as a district. And we've been very, I would say, deliberate about making sure that we're just following the guidance. That's why we were closed most of last year. Even, you know, we've followed the guidance as it's come, and we've opened up as much as the guidance has allowed us to. So I would just say that initially. I mean, and in terms of should we look into challenging the California Department of Public Health? I don't know that that's our role as a board, as a school board, doing that. As a parent, go for it. You know, as a voter, go for it. If you're not happy with the people that are being appointed to make these decisions, then, you know, use your voice. That's why we live in a democracy. But I don't know that our role managing the school district is to challenge that level of government. I think it's to focus here. So I wanted to speak first. I'm sorry I cut Rich off. He was going to say something, and he was just going to say limit to 3 minutes. I felt really bad. But I don't know if anyone else on the board wants to comment.
Just if I
Well,
could.
we're not supposed to comment to public comment.
Oh, we're not supposed
No,
to.
there's an agenda.
This is agendized, though, so we can.
This is
It's
agendized. Yeah.
So we finished public comment.
I think we finished public comment, right? We don't have anything more after this?
Is there anybody else?
Okay. Well, come on up. Yeah, because it's broadcast, so if you're back there, no one will be able to hear you at home.
My name is Rachel. We have 3 kids at the high school and 1 kid at Windsor Middle School. And there's there's many things I want to talk about, but I'll keep it
Can you
quick.
talk a
Here,
little
can you hear
closer
me?
to the mic?
Yeah, can you hear me? So 3 kids at the high school. For one thing, you were talking about kids being discriminated or othered. That has already happened at Windsor High School for some of our kids, and I'm very unhappy about it. We've had teachers ask which kids are vaccinated, which are not vaccinated. We've had them tell our kids that depending on how many kids are vaccinated, what kind of year they're going to have, whether they're going to have a good year, whether they're going to separate from vaccinated or not vaccinated, whether they're going to teach outside. I find that discriminating. It's othering our kids. I will not get my kids vaccinated. I'm not going to do it. There's too much evidence out there against this vaccination. But I don't feel, there was also a survey that one of the teachers at the high school asked them to fill out, asking if they're vaccinated, asking whether their parents are keeping them from being vaccinated. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. There's so many things. I mean, we kept our kids out of school for 15 months, and I don't know if anybody has looked up on the CDC website. Over 40,000 kids have died in the last year and a half, only 335 from COVID. So it's like, why are we doing all of this? I don't understand. I don't understand. These kids are not at a high risk, and you know what I mean? Their education is suffering from this. I'm too nervous. There's too many other things, but that's where I wanted to start it at. Where we're drawing the line with the teachers and our kids and othering them and discriminating, that is a big issue for me right now. So I'll end it right there for now.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other public comment? I don't see any. Do we have any board comments before I move on to item 6?
Yeah, if I could, just real quick. Stephanie, I agree that, and I want to make sure, so I just want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from. I don't believe it's our position as a board to go to the CDC. I just wanted to know, who is it that we're supposed to go as a parent, or who is, when a parent says, hey, why are we doing this? I just wanted to know where the end of that stream went, so that way as a parent and other parents that are concerned can speak to this issue, and they have a place to go to know where that place is. So that's one. Two, sometimes I get passionate about certain things and whatever, and I just want to make sure everybody understands. And in case I raise my voice or whatever you want to call it in our debate, I have nothing but 100% respect for the other people on the board. So, I like this board. It's one of the best functioning boards that I've seen, and I've been around government for a long time. We all have different ideas, different positions, different thoughts, and different experiences, and I'm really honored that I'm part of that group where we all bring all of our different experiences together, and we make something really, really good. It's the reason I ran for the board. I wanted our school district to be the best that it could possibly be. And with my other trustees up here, Malinelli's not here right now, and George used to be on the board, I think the trajectory of our district is on a great trajectory right now. Sure, we're having hiccups in different areas, but we're going good. So please don't anybody misunderstand vigorous debate and discussions with a lack of respect or a lack of appreciation for each of us on the board. It's to the contrary. We actually get along really, really well, and we get a lot of things done. And there's a lot of things that are going to be so positive for our kids in the next year, 2, 3, and 4 years by the things that this board's putting together with our district staff that I'm really happy. So please don't misunderstand our vigorous discussions as anything less than very, very, from my perspective, incredible respect and appreciation for the service and the talents that each bring to the board. So just in case I might have misunderstood or somebody might have misunderstood my zeal.
You were challenging your inner Olympic skateboarder, Rich. That's what that was, baby.
Yes.
If I might just close, President Stephanie, I think this board 100% fully supports what the superintendent and Julian and our administrators are doing. And we are on the right track and trajectory to keep our kids safe and well. And there are additional steps that we need to be taking to do that. Not less steps, more steps. And I appreciate the fact that we've had a robust conversation about it. I imagine we may need to get updates about this occasionally. I think having the airing, and thank you, Rich, because and I love having, you and I having vigorous conversations, but to make it better. And we truly are doing things that almost nobody else in the county is doing now, which is a whole heck of a lot better than doing nothing. And thank you for all that.
And if I could make one more suggestion, I know you talked about who do we reach out to, the state director of public health, maybe the person that's really hard to get through to. Their time is extremely valuable, I'm sure. I would recommend, just personally on my front, working with the county director, Dr. Mace, and then she and the other counties all meet with that state director probably daily, I would imagine, if not weekly. They're having big communication meetings, and that might be an easier person to contact directly or have a interaction with than to go completely to the top of the food chain. But that's just a personal prerogative. So you'd have to decide what best way to go would be for you. But you might get a little better reaction from somebody more local who could then pass that forward or give you information from the state director than trying to go directly to the state director himself.
Right. And another option is your county supervisor, who is James Gore, and he meets with the county health director, Dr. Mays, I think at least used to meet daily and maybe regularly. So that's the other option for a local. Okay, we will move on to item 6.1. Thank you for the vigorous discussion. Thank you for those who came and made public comment. I know it's not easy to stand up and do that, and we appreciate you. 6.1 is lease back, and I'm turning it over to Jeremy and Brian.
And I'm going to turn it over to Brian. So come on up. I made Brian stay the whole time so we could give this
Thanks,
presentation.
Brian, for staying and waiting for this item.
So, as I talked about earlier for Cali Calmacac, the two-story construction we're doing over there, we would really like to use the lease-leaseback agreements. I know we've done that for the Brooks two-story building and the library, and it worked out really well. So we reached out to the lawyers to start the process and get all the documents, and they recommended to have the resolution adopted by the board, which is what we are proposing right now. So I don't know if you have any questions on the lease-leaseback or...
Bill, go ahead.
Could you give, I've looked at the agenda item and will support it, but could you give a minute to just describe for people who maybe aren't familiar with what a leaseback arrangement looks like, what advantages it has for the district as the builder?
Typically, we've been bidding a lot of projects, so we'll go out on the streets and provide the documents, and then contractors will provide us with a bid, and we'll end up going with the lowest bidder. What the leaseback allows us to do is select a contractor on best value. So we'll go out for a request for proposal, and general contractors who are pre-qualified with the district will submit a proposal with their general like pre-construction fees and a percentage fee for general construction. And after we go through the selection process, we use the percentage fee along with we have interviews and ask the contractors specific questions. And after we select that contractor, they will then work with us and help us review the documents and give any comments on the design to help with the construction. So this allows us to get a better quality of work. We'll have more options to select a contractor based on their RFP. This will also help with the current climate with the high escalation, because we'll be able to lock in a price earlier than we would with a low bid. So those are the main highlights of why we want to use this process.
If I can chime in as a contractor, I think I would encourage our district to use lease-leaseback on everything. The advantages are huge. Oftentimes things are spec'd in on a project that aren't necessarily the best thing. There are, they talk about equals and other things. Sometimes people will have a certain preference for a certain manufacturer, and yet there are other products that are just as good, sometimes better, but they're just, that particular architect is tied in with a certain, like in our industry, a certain heater. Well, that heater might cost $70,000, and a heater that will do just the same thing, it might be $35,000. You can actually get two heaters for the price of one, just because of who's spec'd in. So when you open it up to different contractors, they are able to, instead of just the low bid, they're able to, when they're already past the qualification part of it, sometimes in that lease-leaseback option, a contractor can come in and say, hey, look, if we did this and this, we can save you $100,000 by doing this. It opens up, it brings the experience of the actual person who does that kind of work in line with the people who design that kind of work. And It's a win-win deal all the way around. I have not seen lease-backs where there's problems. It also, you're locking in the markup. So down the road, you find this big old 18-inch sewer line going right through your project that nobody knew existed. Well, you got to fix it. And the fix is, we've already agreed in advance what that markup is going to be to subs, sub-subs, and what have you. It's a winner all the way around. And you will find that more people, more contractors will bid our work also with lease-backs. So I'm 100% in favor of this as a methodology as well.
Definitely. And I've been working on the schedule for this RFP. I'm hoping it got passed today. And if everything works out, I can get them approved by October, the October board meeting. And that's right when we're submitting to DSA on increment 2. So we can get a lot of feedback on those documents, which will be really nice.
Well, sounds good. I don't think we have any questions or comments. No? Oh, yeah, I need to go out for public comment. Is there a public comment on this? Doesn't look like it. And then I need a motion. This is a resolution, so I'm going to need a motion, a second, and then I think we have to do a roll call.
I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution.
Thank you.
I'll do this. Oh, okay, I'll make the second motion. Yes.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, roll call, please.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Oh, wait, and I forgot something. We need to do a preferential student board member vote because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
So go ahead. Kai can go first.
I approve this motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Eric Kites.
Yes?
Bill Adams.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you so much, Brian, for sticking around. And it looks like we are on to 7.1, which is our future school board agenda calendar, standing item, and then 8.1, meeting adjournment. Any last comments before we adjourn? Okay, let's see. Oh, Kai, go ahead.
I would just like to say thank you for everybody who presented this meeting.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
No, it's too early.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Yes.
I'll just say that we actually really like these meetings, so this should have been a much shorter meeting, but we found a way, Jeremy, we found a way to make it last 3 hours. We're very good at it. Okay, who was the second? It was Eric? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't know that we had a second. I did the first, but,
Oh, okay, I will second.
okay.
We are adjourned at 8:20.